Hello YouTube, Optimistic Teal here. So today I'm going to be telling a story. So I've talked about this in live streams a couple times, but I figured it deserved its own little video. Personally, I don't believe in scripts, by the way, so I'm just doing this kind of out of the blue. So, so basically, the way I got into Dark Souls, or how I became a Dark Souls fan in the first place, was actually because of a good friend of mine named Josh. Now, see, it all started around Christmas of 2016 or 15. I want to say 15 though. Yeah, it was 15, I believe. So around that time, right? And I was basically getting convinced to get Scholar of the First Sin. Now, at the time, by the way, I was very new to anime and all that, which he also got me into anime, but that's a story for another day. So it was around Christmas, I think like in November, actually, and he was showing me PvP videos, and if you don't know what PvP means, player versus player, and basically he was showing me, you know, like all these PvP videos, and I was like, oh my god, like this game looks super good. And I was like, and that's just PvP. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, oh no, there's story, there's boss fights, and then he showed me some of the cutscenes in Scholar, which, by the way, Dark Souls 2 has some of my favorite cutscenes of all time, because the other games don't really have many cutscenes, unfortunately. So basically, right, and here's where it all started. It started with a YouTube channel named Limit Breakers. So the first video I ever watched by Limit Breakers was one called Helicopter Man. And I remember it was at Iron Keep Bridge, and I remember my first thought was, this place looks like Mustafar. Like, this is literally Mustafar. And I was like, whoa, like, what is this place? It looks so cool, you know? And, of course, you know, that's where I mean, if you haven't seen Helicopter Man, watch it. That song is so damn catchy. But, I remember, you know, I finally got Dark Souls 2. It was on Christmas, and, basically, you know, again, I was still relatively new. And understand, this is also the time I was getting into anime and all that. So, anyway, you know, I got Dark Souls 2 finally. You know, it's Christmas Day, like everybody, because basically there's usually a Christmas dinner and stuff going on. Then you got, like, then there's me, right? I'm just, like, chilling in my room playing Dark Souls. And, so I went to play it, and I couldn't even summon him because the Wi-Fi was so bad that day. So I was stuck at Cardinal Tower just getting wrecked and basically learning how to play. And then I remember afterwards, though, then we learned I learned how to actually PvP. Now, PvP quickly became my favorite aspect because I love fighting other players. And I remember he was like, you know, you can also combo certain things, like use your spells in your fights and all that, which eventually, you know, as we were progressing through the game, I remember I didn't even know how to jump for a while. So the first time I was at Hades and I went to get that chest, I actually ran straight off the cliff because I forgot how to jump. And you know, so as we're progressing, right, I didn't even have a 100-block shield for a long time. And I remember the first 100-block shield I ever got, he gave to me. And if you don't know who I'm referring as by he, I mean Josh. So I think we actually played with another person at one point in time, but I don't remember who it was. So basically, I remember the first time I went to the Lost Bastille. I remember that's where I first encountered Lucatiel. This quickly became my favorite NPC of all time, by the way. Solaire's weak! You know what I'm saying? But yeah, Lucatiel quickly became my favorite. And by the way, just for the record, when I met Solaire, was not impressed. Just saying. So I get to the Lost Bastille. That's gonna piss so many people off. I know it. But I get to the Lost Bastille, and I'm not gonna lie. My first impression. By the way, I couldn't pronounce her name, so I called her Lucario of Mira. So basically, first time I met her, I'm like, she's kind of mean. It was like, give it time, man. She'll become one of your favorites. I'm like, yeah, I doubt that. Because, like, she seems kind of mean the first time you meet her. Like, she's very, repulsive, you know? Like, she does not like your character at all. And then, you know, give it time, and, you know, these guys seem to actually become friends. And I'm like, and I actually didn't even get to see the end of Lucatiel's questline, because I didn't realize she goes to Aldia's Keep, and you have to find her in the gutter, which I never did, by the way. So I didn't finish Luke Teal's quest line until my second time through. But anyway, furthermore though. So I remember the whole thing was I would do pyromancy, one would do faith, and the other would do sorcery. That's why I'm saying I do remember there being a third person. I just don't remember who it was. Of course, I wasn't very good at PvP though. See, we finally make it to Earthen Peak. Now, this is the point where pyromancy is actually half decent, because I was not told pyromancy is basically useless against bosses for most bosses in DS2. Let's be real here. And then, so as time goes forward, they're like, hey, by the way, Teal, this is like the one boss like you can really shine against because they take hella fire damage. And I'm like, really? So I just start spamming fireballs. I'm just going to call her Medusa because let's be real here. They're basically Medusa. So I get to Iron Keep, and I remember my wise, nice job here. My eyes just widened, and I was so happy. I literally just sprinted everywhere around Iron Keep because I was just so fascinated by it. Because I'm like, this is where Helicopter Man was. And fun fact, I actually laid down some what's it called, flowers and stuff. I can't remember the name, but I laid those down where Helicopter Man jumped off the stairs and fell into the lava as sort of a nice little thing, along with some prism stones, because Helicopter Man is my hero. So, well, at the time anyway. And I remember I always wanted there to be a second one. And I remember that's actually around the time that the third Helicopter Man came out. So, yeah, Helicopter Man really kind of led to it all for me. Also, the Pain Train. If you haven't seen the Pain Train, watch that. Literally, I watched all of Limit Breaker's PvP stuff after Helicopter Man. So, I get to Iron Keep, right? And stuff's going pretty good. I meet the Elan Knights. By the way, since I was new to anime, I loved katanas. And, I always used the Uchi because it was my first katana. And I also did a Ichigo cosplay for DS2. Because I was also into Bleach at the time. Not that I don't like Bleach anymore or anything like that, but I've moved on to some different anime now. But anyway, so time's moving forward and stuff. Then I learn about the DLC. So we get to Nashandra, right? And I know that's a huge jump, Iron Keep and all that. But we get to Nashandra. We get towards the end, and I'm like, hey, is that it? No. There are still hours of PvP you can still get into, and 3 DLCs, which I never did. I did, a quarter of the Iron Keep DLC, and then, I just got wrecked from then on out. So, here's the thing. So, I mainly got into PvP after that. Now remember, I did train in PvP for a while with my buddy Josh, and they basically taught me. They could never really teach me how to parry though. I was very bad at parrying at the time. But I remember I would literally, alright, so every day, it was my sophomore year I believe in high school. So every day I would come home, get on DS2 with my boy Josh, and Iron Keep Bridge, and I always have the meanest of fashion souls at the ready. And I remember I would just sit there all day watching people PvP. I would occasionally PvP, but again, I was still relatively new. By the way, I had effigies for days because I did that every day. So I think I had 99 effigy, pretty much every time. So, of course, I remember one of the final times, though, because I did PvP, and I was actually somewhat good at it. I used to have a win montage up, but I didn't really know how copyright notices worked, and I always thought they were really bad, so I removed the song off it. But yeah, that was when I was pretty early into PvP. But the last time I think I ever PvP'd with my buddy Josh, who switched over to Xbox, by the way. That's also kind of why I got into Xbox more than PS. Aside from streaming, that's the main thing I like about PS. But anyway, one of the final times I had ever PvP'd with him, I got a parry. Now understand why this is so important. This is the thing he could never teach me because I was so bad at it. But secondly, this is the man that I saw parry people every day left and right. This man was a parry genius, okay? There's only one person I know of that surpasses this man's in parries. So, alright, so here's the thing. I got a parry on this man. Understand, like, I screamed to the top of my lungs, right? I was so happy. And of course, this was our final time PvPing, which, a fun fact I want to add, if I remember right, we did reenact some Star Wars stuff. And of course, I'm talking about, it's over, Anakin, I have the high ground. Literally, so many puns, if I remember correctly. But I actually became, like, a master at getting on those rocks and climbing back up to the bridge. That's how I won quite a few fights, because I got so used to fighting on those when shit got scary that I knew that shit like the back of my hand. So, basically, right, this is pretty much the story of DS2 for me, because after that, my buddy Josh switched back to Xbox, and, well, by that time, DS3 had come out, so, you know, there wasn't really much PvP to be done anymore. And I remember being kind of sad about that, because, not gonna lie, my first impression of DS3's PvP was not a good one. But yeah, this is the story of DS2 and basically how I got into it. It all started with one of my buddies and Helicopter Man. And so yeah, that's basically my journey. Other than that, the only thing I do want to add about Lucatiel, by the way, he was totally right. Like, my first impression of Lucatiel was, wow, she's kind of mean. But towards the end, I remember feeling so sad because, yeah, I didn't get to witness how she died firsthand, but once I read the story, because I made it to like 3/4 of the way for her story, I remember just feeling so sad and just thinking that they're the absolute best. And when I summoned them for the Smelter Demon, I was like, oh my god, she's like a fucking god. Like, she's literally just taking hits, no sweat. Like, Lucatiel is truly awesome and honestly an NPC that is sort of inspiring in a way. But I'm going to make a video about her someday too. I also need to draw her at some point. But anyway, to those of you that stopped by in this video and listened, I really appreciate it. And if you guys want more story time stuff, because I love telling stories, by the way, I would gladly do that. So anyway, peace out, guys.